Hello, my name is Elise Carter. I thought Family Day at Fort Bragg would be about honor and pride, but instead my own brother turned it into a stage to humiliate me. Maybe you've felt that sting too when someone you love uses your weakness as entertainment. I stood there in uniform, torn between silence and defending my dignity. This isn't just my story. It's for anyone who's been mocked by family and had to find the courage to stand tall. Family Day was meant to show discipline, not humiliation. But the moment my brother grabbed the microphone, I knew he came to turn my pride into his stage. The autumn wind combed banners across the field. Children drifted between chairs. Reporters checked levels and let their lenses settle on me. I stood at the mat's edge, boots off, shirt tucked, counting breaths, the way we count seconds behind a door. David's voice came bigger than the speakers. When I was 9, boys tore my notebook on the bus. I cried. David laughed. That laugh makes air go cold in my throat. It went cold now. He pointed at the mat. Spar for fun, Captain. Unless you're scared in front of your shiny uniform. Laughter scattered, half relief, half appetite. Mark grinned. Leo cinched his belt. Trent watched margins, not noise. Sergeant Hale met my eyes, rules before pride. I stepped onto the mat. I will not strike. I will only neutralize. Mark charged like a door slam. I tilted, caught his triceps, cut his base, and let momentum decide. Leo sought a classic throw grip, step timing. I sank weight, stole his underhook, folded him, and set him down as if placing porcelain. Trent moved without bravado, measuring breath and heel, the silence between motions. He fainted. I gave him emptiness, then took space back with a wrist peel and ankle bite. My sleeve rode high. A hawk's silhouette flashed on my left wrist. Recognition slid across his face, a quiet shock that tightened posture without hardening his eyes. Noise thickened. Phones lifted. Not adrenaline, arithmetic, angles, levers, the cost of escalation. Control is a ledger. I meant to balance it in public. Mark rushed again. I stepped through and redirected him. Leo dived for a leg. I sprawled, rolled him through his own reach, and released before pride could argue with safety. 3 bodies found the mat in sequence, each landing the gentlest version of truth. The field narrowed to a lens. The lens narrowed to a pupil. I faced it. This is not revenge. This is the last boundary I will draw for you in public under the law. Silence pressed heavier than any cheer. A single clap started and died. Verdicts began in whispers and in thumbs. I stood inside the stillness. No celebration, no apology for control. I had drawn a line with technique and left every face the dignity of choosing a side. Beyond rigs and bright tape, afternoon kept moving as if the earth preferred poise to noise. Behind the cameras, David shifted his weight like a man waking from a dream that no longer flattered him. I didn't look for his approval. I looked at the boundary and remembered why I drew it. I didn't seek his approval. I watched the line sew. Cameras zoom on David's face, flushed, twitching, cornered. His humiliation sets the stage for scandal. They said the official clip proved restraint. But by the time I got home, another version painted me as arrogant, and I knew exactly whose fingerprints were on it. The red light on the camera was supposed to mean safety, proof that context would protect me. Instead, it became a trap I couldn't step out of. 2 days after Family Day, my phone vibrated until the battery gasped. The official video posted by Public Affairs under the title Exhibition of Restraint showed exactly what I promised: 3 men neutralized without harm, discipline winning over spectacle. It gathered a few thousand views, mostly soldiers' families nodding in quiet approval. Then the second cut arrived. Edited fast, laced with captions uploaded by a blogger who smelled outrage like blood in the water. The title screamed, "Army Captain Humiliates Civilians in Rigged Spar." Out went David's taunts. Out went my promise of rules. The feed showed only flips, falls, and one slow-motion shot of me bowing a gesture of respect, captioned as mocking her opponents. Within hours, the clip racked up hundreds of thousands of views, comments tangled in war hero fraud feminist bully. My restraint had been twisted into arrogance. Inside the public affairs office screens glowed with hashtags burning hotter than I could read. Sarah Kim, the junior officer who managed Family Day Media, stood pale under fluorescent light as accusations sharpened. She leaked the raw file, one lieutenant muttered. She wanted attention. Sarah's voice cracked but didn't falter. I posted only the approved cut. Nothing more. I looked at her face, jaw-clenched, eyes steady, and believed her. She reminded me of myself the first time I stood accused of something I didn't do. Hale's hand on my shoulder was both weight and warning. "Remember what I told you," he said low enough only I could hear. "If you answer arrogance with anger, UCMJ won't care about family or pride. Keep your center." His voice steadied me more than the room did. I asked for an IT audit. Hours later, the report slid across my desk. The viral clip hadn't been exported from Sarah's account. Her logs were clean. The leak came from somewhere else, an external drive, unauthorized access. A thumbprint of betrayal. I didn't need the name written in ink to recognize the shadow behind it. That night in my quarters, David leaned against the doorframe like he owned the air. He smirked, eyes glittering with the same malice I'd seen on the bus decades ago. "Quite a storm, Captain. Thought restraint would make you untouchable." His tone was mockery dressed as brotherly concern. I didn't rise to it. Silence is a mirror. It forces people to see their own reflection. He pushed harder. "You think your rank shields you? Let's see how long before the world eats you alive." I held his gaze, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a reply. The hawk under my sleeve burned like it remembered what betrayal costs. He left with a sneer, and I sat alone, hearing the storm outside shift from wind to rain. By morning, the colonel's aide summoned me. The office was austere, papers stacked like verdicts waiting their signatures. The colonel didn't waste time. "Captain Carter," he said, voice hard, as Granite Review Board convenes in December. "Be ready to justify every choice you made." They said I won without striking. But in this room, silence weighed more than fists, and I had to decide if silence would save me or bury me. The tribunal chamber smelled of dust, and polished gray walls hung with flags that refused to move. A recorder blinked red on the table, another small eye. I sat straight, palms, flat spine steady, the way Hale taught me. Footsteps outside, held breaths inside. The panel filed in. The colonel's face could have been carved from the wall. "Captain Carter," he began, voice clipped. "Why didn't you refuse the Spar?" No preface. Words here carried mass. I let the pause become will. "I chose to engage under rules," I said, "to protect discipline in public and prevent escalation. I set my conditions. I did not strike." Pens moved. Skepticism took notes. A junior officer tilted his head. "Some would call that theater, a display for cameras. Was it arrogance? A captain showing off?" The word theater glowed like bait. I let it pass and kept my breath even. They called Sarah Kim. She walked in rigid with control eyes, steady hands folded. The prosecutor tapped a printout. "You posted the official edit. Did you also release the raw?" Sarah's throat worked, but her voice held. "No, sir. Only the approved cut." Something tightened behind my ribs, the bus, the torn notebook, David's laugh. I asked to speak. "Her hands are clean." This was no accident. The colonel's eyebrow ticked a millimeter, neither approval nor reprimand, a reminder. Proof speaks, posture does not. It presented the summary. The raw file had not left Sarah's account. An external export, time-stamped after the event, origin unregistered. Suspicion changed shape. Hale testified next. "Facts, not favors," I declared. "Terms. He logged them. I used control over force. No injuries beyond pride." His voice had the weight of a man who does not guess. The room felt level again. Then the door opened on someone I didn't summon. Trent entered in plain clothes and calm. "Civilian witness," he said. The colonel studied him, then nodded. Trent faced the panel, then me. "We underestimated military discipline. She didn't humiliate us, she restrained us. Ego met discipline, and ego lost. I learned more in 2 minutes of losing gently than in years of trying to dominate. No flourish, just a careful truth." Recess. The corridor was a long, cold throat. David waited with his shoulder to a cinder-block wall, arms folded like a verdict. "You look smaller under fluorescent lights," he said, voice pitched for me alone. I gave him the mirror of quiet. He couldn't help admiring himself in it. "People needed to see you're not untouchable." I sent the video to a blogger for balance. The hawk under my sleeve burned. I kept my tone flat. "Then I'll make sure the world sees restraint, not your lies." He shrugged like truth was a jacket he might try on later. "Good luck with your board, Captain." He hummed as he left. Back inside, the recorder blinked red. Trent's statement was entered. The IT findings were read. Sarah was dismissed with a nod that wasn't apology but wasn't nothing. The colonel turned to me. "Final statement: I maintained control to prevent harm in a public demonstration. I accept that I could have refused and did not. I accept responsibility for that discretion." The words fell clean and heavy. The panel conferred in a low spill of syllables, paper rustling like rain. When quiet returned, the colonel addressed me, voice without warmth, but not without regard. I held still as judgment settled. Colonel notes sternly, "Your discretion will be recorded. But your restraint may serve a larger purpose." Hinting Elise's ordeal will expand beyond this room. Some wounds heal in silence. Others demand a workshop, a mop, and 6 months of humility. The colonel's remark at the tribunal became a quiet order inside me. Restraint may serve a purpose. By spring 2024, Fort Bragg's training hall had been stripped of pomp. Hale and I rolled whiteboards inside Trent, taped paper across the wall, and together we wrote until our fingers cramped 22 principles pared down for survival. Control before power, responsibility before pride, breath before reaction, exit before ego. Each sounded plain, but we rehearsed them until they could stand inside chaos. We called it respect under pressure. No music, no mirrors, no glamour. The room smelled of old mats and bleach. Pads leaned against walls like waiting sentries, towels folded into squares. The recruits arrived in uneven lines, teenagers from shelters, young soldiers flagged for reckless sparring, a girl whose fists trembled even when no one touched her. David came last, gray shirt hanging loose, face hard with refusal. Hale put a mop in his hands. "Chores first." David looked at me for rescue. I gave him silence. The mop squeaked across the floor and the sound clung like consequence. The first week we drilled listening under stress. One partner read insults, the other held posture and breath. Some cracked fast, some swallowed fury, some shook, until Hale steadied them with a nod. David reset Matt's taped wrists, carried water, muttering under breath, but never loud enough to stop the cadence. By the second week, sweat painted the floor. We taught eye contact under insult. I showed the reset inhale down the spine, pivot the hips, answer, steady. Noted. We continue. It was a protocol, not a slogan. David mocked the words at first, then fell quiet when recruits lasted longer than he expected. Resistance gathered outside. A coalition of instructors accused us of colonizing martial arts with procedure. At a town hall, one sensei spat, "You'll make cowards." Hale laid out legal frameworks steady. Then Trent stood. His voice carried without shouting. "If your art can't coexist with accountability, then it's insecurity disguised as tradition." The room split, but the sentence stayed. Inside repetition forged discipline. David cleaned mats until the mop became a rhythm. He didn't brag, He didn't vanish. He carried pads and waterlogged names and listened even when his jaw clenched. By midsummer, we counted results. Hale trusted numbers sparring incidents down 42%, verbal escalations cut in half. We pinned charts on the wall below the principals. 2 gyms that once mocked us asked to audit. I told them, you take it before you teach it. They came in plain clothes and left subdued. Some nights I stayed alone, scrubbing scuffs as dusk stained the windows. I thought about family day, the red light of the camera, the storm it made. Respect under pressure was no apology, it was a recalibration. Each drill shifted oxygen from ego to control. Teenagers stood taller when they could hold an insult without cracking. Soldiers learned restraint as skill, not slogan. The memo came folded, carried by Hale. Recommend expansion. Across bases he read, flat voice betraying pride. It wasn't praise, it was adoption. My chest didn't swell, it steadied. Restraint had turned into policy. That night I found David at the far corner rinsing a mouthguard for a boy too shy to ask. No sneer, no show, just action. Then he lifted the mop again. I didn't thank him. Gratitude is earned. I leaned against the doorframe listening to bristles drag across wood. I watched David mop the floor, silent, no bravado. For the first time, I wondered if humility might actually be sinking in. They once called me arrogant for standing my ground. A year later, I stood on the same mat, this time not to prove myself, but to prove that restraint can rebuild even what betrayal tried to break. October 2024 arrived with a different kind of anticipation. The same banners stretched above Fort Bragg's demonstration hall, the same cameras perched at the edges, but the air no longer trembled with taunts or rivalry. It carried a quieter charge, curiosity, perhaps even respect. Families filled the rows, children fidgeting with folded programs, recruits whispering before the start. Hale stood near the corner, arms crossed, his steady gaze measuring every detail. Trent adjusted the mats, his presence less of a bridge now and more of a pillar. And David, my brother, stood not in front, not with a microphone, but at the side, a box of mouthguards tucked under his arm. His shirt was plain, his steps unhurried. He moved from recruit to recruit, tying belts, checking straps, correcting nothing with words, but everything with patience. I let myself watch only for a moment before focusing on the room. We began with the principals. My voice carried steady as I named them aloud. Control before power. Responsibility before pride. Breath before reaction. Each phrase echoed in the hall, written now into drills that parents and children mirrored together. No one shouted, no one mocked. Hands rose not to challenge but to ask, "Can you show that again?" I guided them through postures, through listening under stress, through standing tall when words try to pull you down. It wasn't performance. It was practice. I saw shoulders relax, jaws unclench. Respect spread slower than applause but lasted longer. Midway, I paused. The room quieted as if they sensed something waiting. I rolled my sleeve. The hawk ink shimmered under the lights, small yet weighty. A soft gasp traveled the rows. I held it steady, not like a medal but like a scar. "This is not victory," I said, voice level. "This is accountability." A reminder of a life I couldn't bring back, and the reason I choose restraint. Silence filled every corner, not heavy but reverent. For the first time, I felt the tattoo serve not as burden, but as lesson. David stepped forward, surprising me with his timing. He did not reach for a microphone. He simply bowed his head and spoke loudly enough for the room. "I need to say this, not just to my sister, but to every soldier and every family here. I mocked what I didn't understand. I turned pride into poison. I was wrong." His words trembled, but they stood on their own feet. Applause rose, not wild, not chaotic. It was measured, deliberate. Not for spectacle, but for acknowledgement. Hale nodded once as if confirming something long overdue. Trent clapped David on the shoulder, his respect silent but visible. I turned back to the crowd, heart steady. I didn't win with a punch, I said. I won by drawing a boundary, and today, my brother chose to cross it with humility. The hall shifted with sound chairs scraping as people stood, a mother dabbing at her eyes, recruits straightening as if taller already. The cameras caught it all, but this time they didn't own the story. We did. Justice had not come the day of the scandal. It hadn't come when the tribunal stamped my record with a scar. It came here a year later when silence turned into understanding and betrayal gave way to humility. I looked across the audience, some in tears, some standing taller. I thought justice comes late, but it still comes if we hold the line. I've carried the weight of betrayal and found strength in restraint. Now I ask you, the ones listening, to share what you see in me. Was I cold or was I steady? Did I choose silence wisely or too late? Your voice matters. Leave your thoughts below. By speaking, you honor not just my journey, but every person who has faced humiliation and still stood tall. Help me turn this story into proof that justice, though delayed, still heals.